Ryan McDonagh and Jeremy Lauzon were two important pieces of Nashville's blue line this past season, but things are going to look a little different for both players and the Predators next season. We'll award season superlatives and talk about that on today's Locked On Predators.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast, and thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this hallelujah, y'all, it's finally Friday episode with a shout out to our Locked On Pred heads, our everyday listeners who tune in each and every day to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. We appreciate your support, and we love that we get to spend just a little bit of our day with you. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and my friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I am Emma Lingen, and I am the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
On today's show, Emma and I are going to continue season superlatives. We're going to award superlatives to Ryan McDonagh and Jeremy Lauzon for their 2023-24 season. We're also going to talk about what is next for each player. Big Mac not coming back to Nashville. We're going to hear more about how that move went down and talk about how that's going to affect the Predators moving forward. We're also going to talk about Jeremy Lauzon's record-setting season as well. And friends, we did mention it is Friday, and that means Emma and I have brought some big Friday feelings. But before we dive into all that, want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, Emma, we are working our way through the defense when it comes to season superlatives. And here we're at a little bit of a tricky one. This one gives my heart a little hitch in the giddy up. And we got to talk about Ryan Patrick McDonagh. Ryan Patrick has left the building. He has gone back to Tampa Bay. And we're going to hear from Barry Trotz on how all of that went down. And we're going to talk about that because I have feelings about that. Ryan McDonagh this season, 74 games played, 3 goals, 29 assists, 32 points, a plus 19 in his season. Kick us off, Emma. Tell me, what superlative are you awarding Ryan McDonagh for the 2023-24 season?
This is more about him leaving Nashville, I feel like, but it's still
Legit.
relevant. I think
Yes.
the most likely to have a legit homecoming parade back in Tampa, what I picture in my head is in the movie Aladdin, where he is he becomes the prince and he rides the elephant and all that. Exactly, for Prince Ali. Yes, exactly. Make way for Ryan Patrick McDonagh. That is they're going to be, put throwing flowers in the streets for this man. They love him in Tampa. I mean, when we were there, his first game back in Tampa after he was traded to the Predators 2 seasons ago, he wasn't even playing because he was injured, and this would be an honorable mention superlative, most likely to break his face, because my God, the man blocked more pucks with his face last year. I was getting nervous.
He really did.
He had to wear a cage for a lot of the season. He really did not like doing that. And he also did not like answering questions about it, as some of us found out the hard way. But he, again, when he came back, I think the mayor of Tampa gave him a key to the city, and they declared it Ryan Patrick McDonagh Day. And it's the whole thing. And I'm like, God, I hope one day that I am important enough to anyone to get any of this done for me, because that seems pretty awesome. And look, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. He won 2 Stanley Cups with Tampa, but he is just beloved there. So I think that this is a perfect homecoming scenario.
Yes.
Obviously, Tampa's going to get him back, and he and his family are going to be happy to go back there. So that's my superlative.
Yeah, I agree with you, though. I don't quite understand where the Emma and Ann parade, when has that been scheduled? Where is the parade route, and how soon should we be prepared for that kind of a homecoming? Because we're just sitting here waiting, y'all.
I bet it's a surprise. Or maybe we have to get traded. Like, we have to go get traded to another podcast and talk
There we
about
go.
another team for 2 seasons, and
Okay.
then we come back
Like,
to Nashville. Yeah. Mhm.
all right, so we're going to become the new host of Locked On Anaheim Ducks, and then we'll
Yeah.
come back and maybe we'll do it.
Maybe
I don't
then we will
know.
get the respect that we deserve.
That's right. When I look at Ryan McDonagh, my superlative is so basic and so easy. And for me, he is most reliable. Like, he is the guy, and I know we've talked about reliability with some other players, Roman Yossi, very reliable. But for me, when Ryan McDonagh is on the ice, you know what you're going to get from him because he plays the same game in and game out. And of course, years of experience was with the Rangers, again with Tampa Bay, where he won 2 Stanley Cups. But even here in Nashville, you knew exactly what you were going to get, and you didn't have to worry when he was on the ice because he just doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And if he did make a mistake, he was the player that would rush back to fix his own mistake. Like, he just is so reliable. He's like the old, like, scruffy, rough looking sailor on the fishing boat where he's like out walking the deck in a hurricane, not holding on to anything, still reeling in the nets. Like, that is Ryan McDonagh. He is like the Gordon's fisherman of hockey for me.
I'm picturing him as like a character in Pirates of the Caribbean now or something, where he's just like standing on the deck, just watching the hurricane engulf the ship and just act like it's nothing. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, I
and be
mean,
like, no, I'm good.
I'll agree. I think that especially we saw during the playoffs. I don't know if he did it any more than usual, but it seemed more prominent than usual that he was putting the puck on Vancouver's tape quite a bit during the playoffs. Didn't love to see that.
Yeah,
But to your point, the minute that he would pass the puck or, have a missed pass, he was hauling butt down to the other end of the
yes,
ice to make the block or make the save. So like he held himself accountable. He was very accountable for things, that way he didn't need to be like Ryan O'Reilly and blame himself for everything after the
bless,
loss.
bless.
Because, like he did everything he could. But yeah, I think he was very reliable for Nashville. I do think that clearly he wasn't going to be a long-term piece for this team anyway. I mean, he's 34 years old. So like he
Right.
was coming towards the end of his career probably. I'm sure sentimentally it makes more sense for him to finish out his career in Tampa. The 2 years left on his contract. I think that timeline makes sense. I, Again, he was great. He was a great kind of stabilizer for the Predators during these last 2 seasons have really been a roller coaster with the change
Yes.
on the roster, the change in the front office, the change behind the bench. Like, there's just been a lot, so it's been good to have those kind of guys who can really just kind of like hold everything steady for you. But
Yes.
now as an organization, they're kind of getting to a point where it's like, okay, we're probably done with the large sweeping changes like for the time being, so it's like we can kind of establish our culture now and continue the work that we've done. So I think he was very reliable. I think he will be
Mhm.
missed on that roster for sure, but I am more excited by the prospect of having $7 million or almost $7 million back on the in cap space, because Preds can do a lot with that.
That's a chunk of change, and there are a lot of things that Nashville maybe wants to do with even more money in the bank. So I agree with you on that. It's interesting to me, though, Emma, how this went down. And I think it's worth discussing how this whole move him back to Tampa Bay went down. This is what Barry Trotz had to say, who was very transparent about why Ryan McDonagh is leaving the Nashville Predators.
He's got so many good memories of his time in Tampa. I think that's probably where him and his wife are going to settle. And we just had a conversation about, a little bit of life and what holds in the future. And for me, he's been such a fantastic leader and someone who's, I have so much respect with. He says if there's ever an opportunity for me to get back to Tampa, he asked if I would, explore that a little bit And so, out of respect and type of person that Ryan is, talked to Julian, and we made I think a fair deal that would allow us to have Ryan go back to Tampa Bay and do the right thing. There's sometimes in this game, you try to do the right thing for good people, and Ryan is honestly one of the best leaders that I've ever been associated with, and I've had some great leaders, and he's up there with the greats. And but more importantly, he's just one of the fantastic people that you're going to meet.
So I think it's interesting to see the people side of some of these decisions because, so much when we talk about hockey, we talk about the hockey side and what does the impact, have on ice. And we are going to talk about the impact of losing Ryan McDonagh on the ice. But I think it's interesting how valuable the personal perspective is. And you look at Ryan McDonagh, he's got a young family, but his kids are getting to be school age. If they're wanting to settle long term in Tampa Bay, you do want to get back there and get your kids started in school where they're going to grow up, where they're going to live. He's got a support system down there. And so like the mom in me is like, you know what? That's a really great personal decision to make. It's also interesting that he didn't want to leave Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay didn't really want to get rid of him either. Like Tampa Bay just couldn't afford him. And I think it's a nice way of Tampa Bay making it right with Ryan McDonagh to have him return there in the sense that like they had to ask him, hey, will you waive this no move clause because we need this cap space? And I think it's a really nice way to kind of honor his willingness to do that by taking him back. I do think it's interesting though for Ryan McDonagh personally, the first season he didn't go to the playoffs was with the Nashville Predators last year. It's the first time he's never been in the postseason. And the phrase that he used was crushed. He was crushed not to be in the postseason. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's a competitor right there, who, and they all want to be in the postseason, but just to have been that consistent, to have that kind of experience. And then all of a sudden at this point in his career, he's facing a long summer. So I think this is an interesting move for Ryan McDonagh.
Yeah, I mean, a couple pieces to that. First of all, like you said, Ryan is absolutely a family man. I remember
Yes.
when he was traded to Nashville, one of the of all the, the free agent signings they had or like anyone knew who was coming in, he was here. He had moved here the earliest. He was here early in the summer, and normally guys don't show up until like maybe a week or two before they have to, and because
Right.
they'll want to train back at home wherever their trainers are. And, when they're not doing organized team activities, then, that's fine. But he came here early. And the reasoning he gave was because his daughter, Fallon, was starting kindergarten. That was his oldest daughter. And it was like, we want to get here. We want to get settled. We have a
Yes.
school and we want to don't want to make this harder for her, So it's like that's always been a priority for him. Now Fallon will be going into second grade, and then he's also got a son who will be in pre-K or kindergarten. And they have another little girl too. So it's a good time, I think, for their family. And also wanted to mention, I think you're absolutely right. It was kind of a good faith move by Tampa to say, hey, we appreciate you doing that for us a couple years ago, and now we'll honor you by bringing you back. I also have to give credit to Barry Trotz, though, because for him to honor McDonagh's wishes like that and be willing to put in the effort to make a move like that sends a message not only to McDonagh to be like, hey, we appreciate you, but it also sends a message to other players and other maybe free agents, maybe who are thinking about where should I sign? Where do I want to play? Because Barry Trotz, doing something like this is a move that shows that he cares about the players and he cares about them as people, and he will go the extra mile to do these things for them. And so if I'm a player and I'm a free agent maybe, or I don't know where I want to sign and Nashville's an option, I'm looking at Barry Trotz doing something like that for Ryan McDonagh. And I think that's an organization that I would like to be associated with, because he cares and he takes care of his players. So I think for both GMs, classy move all around. I think, I think the move makes sense.
Yeah. Coming up, we're going to talk about the on ice impact of Ryan McDonagh not being back with the Nashville Predators. We're also going to talk about Jeremy Lauzon and a record setting season that had a lot of people across the league noticing him for maybe the first time. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Policy Genius. A lot of life is unpredictable, but a good life insurance plan gives your family some financial safety to protect against some of those unknowns. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It makes choosing the right policy for your family easy and quick. Policy Genius helps you easily compare your options from America's top insurers in just a few clicks. They have award-winning agents who can walk you through the process step by step. And Policy Genius has no incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you know you can trust their guidance. They have thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. So head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. Again, check it out at policygenius.com. All right, we've talked about Ryan McDonagh. Here are the reasons why he's returning to Tampa Bay, and these are the reasons why it makes sense. But let's just be real honest about the reasons why it sucks just a little bit for the Nashville Predators. Yeah, in some ways, there's good and bad to this move. First of all, we know that there's a backlog on the blue line. You have young players that Barry Trotz has mentioned by name. I want to get these guys up here, and there hasn't been space. The thing that concerns me, Emma, is you're losing a really great defenseman. Of course, he's a very good defenseman. You're also losing a little size and bringing in some smaller size. And we know that, size isn't everything when it comes to the blue line, but Nashville has lost a lot of size on defense over the last couple seasons. Mark Borowiecki, Matthias Ekholm, he is gone. You're losing size. And this is another one of those pieces that you watch go out the door for Nashville.
I don't think you're wrong, but I think I see that as an opportunity during free agency this summer. True. Or to maybe make a trade. But I look at some of the defensemen who are going to be hitting free agency this summer. I mean, Nikita Zadorov.
Hello.
Welcome
to Nashville.
Yep. So
we'll throw you a parade.
Yeah. we'll put you on an elephant and let you ride down Broadway. That's what you want.
That's right.
No, I think that, yeah, I agree. You don't like to lose that. I don't know if McDonagh's greatest asset was his size.
Very true. He didn't have to use it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, he's 6'1", 215. He's a bigger guy, but you have Luke Shen and you have Jeremy Lauzon right now. Mm-hmm. You need more than that because they had that plus McDonagh against Vancouver in the playoffs. We saw how that worked out. So I see, and even, obviously whoever the Predators select at the draft in a couple weeks, we're not going to see those guys on the team next year, obviously, but it is on their radar as an organization. Jeff Kelty, director of scouting, we heard from him a few days ago, and he mentioned that specifically as one of the biggest areas of organizational need being size on defense. And so I think that is going to be an area that they target. Again, the draft is not that's more playing the long game, but I think just the fact that he even mentioned that shows that it's on their radar, and I think it's an area that they want to address, and I could certainly see them doing that in free agency over the summer.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier in the episode, you talk about the money, there's $6.75 million AAV from Ryan McDonagh that you've now just freed up. And we know Nashville's got a little stash going anyway when it comes to cap space. That's not nothing to play with when you're talking about in free agency, maybe addressing a bigger size defenseman. So they could replace some of that and get closer to what they're looking for with the salary that it frees up having McDonagh return to Tampa Bay. So there is an upside to this move as well for both parties, and credit to, again, both the GMs for making this a win-win for both parties, both teams involved. Let's talk about Jeremy Lauzon. Now you want to talk about a whole lot of defensemen to love. 6'3", 225-pound Jeremy Lauzon. 79 games played, 6 goals, 8 assists, 14 points. Jeremy Lauzon had himself a whole year. He had a whole year this year, set the new NHL league record in hits in a single season, 386 hits, averaged 4.89 hits per game. He has to have no hard feelings about anything, because he must just work them out in every 60 minutes of game with 4.89 hits per game. What superlative are you awarding to Jeremy Lauzon this season?
I'm going to go with most likely to earn a steak dinner from David Poile, because 2022, David Poile, former Predators GM, signs him to that 4-year, $8 million contract. Everyone, it seemed like, fans, media, whoever, is like, what is this guy thinking? Why are we shelling out this kind of money, this kind of term for this Lauzon guy that we've barely seen anything from him? Like, why is he worth this? Welcome to 2023-24. We see why. Yes. And David Poile is probably sitting back there being like, oh, thank you, Jeremy, for proving me right. Because he knew he was going to be worth it. And, now with the season that Jeremy Lauzon just had, his contract looks like a huge bargain for the Predators, which is absolutely the opposite of what people thought back when he signed it. So that's what I'm going to go with. It's like, most likely, David Poile's probably, got to owe him a steak dinner or something, and be like, hey, buddy, thanks for proving me right.
That's right. For all of the players that fans have squawked over the years about David Poile signing, there are ones, I tell you, that I look at and I'm like, David Poile, you sneaky little genius, you. And Jeremy Lauzon is that sneaky little genius signing. And again, we talk about hits. My superlative for him is most likely to sing Miley Cyrus's "I Came in Like a Wrecking Ball," which I just, only because the visual of that just delights me. I can't imagine it happening, but it would be really fun if it did.
Or him just swing, like the music video, swinging in on a wrecking ball.
Could we make that happen?
I think he's so funny. Like, it's so fun to watch him out there. Like, I started noticing it more like later in the season, as his name was, he really started developing a reputation for himself. Like, and it was something that, and I talked to him about it too. And I watch, and I can see, as soon as he goes to the other end of the ice, you can see guys getting the heck out of the way. Like, it's like, I have never seen some of these guys move so fast to get out of a guy's way, because he has this reputation now. He's just going to steamroll right through you. And I've asked him about it a few times, and I was like, do you notice that? Like, is it that evident to you when you come over and guys start getting out of the way? And he's like, oh yeah.
It's
baby.
And
he's
that's
like,
huge.
Yeah. And he, like, that's good that he's gotten, he's worked really hard for this. It's like, when number 3 comes to your side, get the hell out of the way, because like that's exactly the kind of player he wants to be. He wants to be hard to play against. He wants to have a reputation, not just because, like, oh, look at me, like I have such a great reputation. It's more about, like, no, I want to prove that I am hard to play against, and like I'm good at what I do. And so I think that it's exciting for me. It's gratifying for me to see him, and to see him kind of grow in his confidence too, because this was really the first year that he was a full-time, like, never a healthy scratch player. The only games he missed this year, he played 79 games in the regular season. The only 3 games he missed were games where he was injured. And he mentioned that as one of his biggest accomplishments this year, is that, like, he has had to fight and claw and just to prove that like, hey, I don't keep sitting me on the bench if you don't have to, because I have a lot of value to add here. And we saw that. I'd also like to point out that this was a record year offensively for Jeremy Lauzon. A whopping 14 points from
double digits
from
double digits.
Noted goal scorer Jeremy Lauzon. Anyone who follows me on Twitter, anytime he scored, which was 6 whole times this year, by the way.
Times.
6 whole times. That doubled his previous career high set last year of 3. So 6 whole times. Whenever he scored a goal, I would always tweet it as noted goal scorer Jeremy Lauzon.
I love that.
Finds the back of the net.
And here's the thing, you can see where, look, Jeremy Lauzon is never going to be Roman Josi. Let's just be straight up. Like, that's not his game, nor should it be, nor do the Predators necessarily need that to be Jeremy Lauzon's game. But there is an offensive upside to him, and he isn't afraid to take the shot from the blue line. And I think that's a great part of his development. And that's one of the things that I like about him is he is not, for as great as this hits record is, and here's the thing, it's not just about rock'em sock'em robots, but you love that even though Jeremy Lauzon, does have this new hits record, what he's doing impacts the team positively. It matters what he's doing. It's not just chasing a record. It's not just trying to put on a show. It is changing the outcome of games. It's changing the way that teams come in and approach Nashville. And the other thing I want to say is he really has become one of those identity players like Michael McCarron, like Cole Smith, like Kiefer Sherwood, in that play hard to play against. He also, the thing that I love when I talk about him is, for me, it's not the quantity of hits. For me, it's the quality of hits. This again is somebody who, while he may have the second most penalty minutes of everybody on the team, he is not out headhunting. He's out trying to change the game plan for his team. And I think that speaks volumes to Jeremy Lauzon's value for this team. Now, again, we want more offensive upside. We always want more goals, and I think there's room for him to grow in that. But credit to him for what he accomplished this season. It's not just about the number of hits. It's about how his style of play changes the way other teams approach Nashville. And that's so valuable.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, I love that you pointed out the quality of the hits. He's not out there laying out dirty hits. He's not look, I'm not mentioning anyone by name here, but he's not out there leading with his elbow. He's not out there, trying to make contact with guys' heads. Like, I mean, things happen, unfortunately, sometimes, but like you can tell he's not out there, like you said, he's not just trying to throw people around just because he can. It's like, okay, how can I strategically move this guy off of a puck or disrupt the play, get him out of the play that's going to help my team and going to help the way that, opponents approach us. So, yeah, I agree with you.
Yep. Jeremy Lauzon, great year this year. We'll see what comes up for him next year. There is potentially one big change when it comes to Jeremy Lauzon and his defensive partner. We're going to talk about what that might be. Plus, friends, it is Friday. And Emma and I, we got some big Friday feelings. We're going to share those coming up in just a moment. First, I want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Now, you may notice different background here. Friends, I booked a hotel. I am in Milwaukee for the Admirals game. And when I booked this hotel, I was a little bit nervous. Like, when I get there for check-in, am I really going to have a room? I do. Worked out okay. But you know what? I've never, ever had that worry buying tickets through Game Time. And I've done it several times. Game Time has killer last-minute deals. They have all-in prices, views from your seat, and they also have a lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can attend sports wherever you are. I can search in Milwaukee and I can find sports concerts, theater, comedy, all right where I'm at. And you don't have to plan ahead. Game Time has great last minute deals with ticket prices that actually go down the closer you get to the first pitch or that first jump ball. The app is super easy to use. Game Time always shows you a view from your seat, and you get that all-in pricing so you don't end up shocked at checkout or shocked at the arena. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Emma. So we talked about Jeremy Lauzon. He is most often partnered with bestie, like in real life, actual bestie, Alexander Carrier. Alexander Carrier, UFA, have not, not sure what's going to happen with that. How big of a difference do you think it will make for Jeremy Lauzon if Alexander Carrier ends up going somewhere else?
I think it'll certainly affect him. They have so much chemistry, and the way that the chemistry off the ice is huge. And I don't think that we should discount that at all. But I also don't think that it's going to change the way that, this whole last season has been about Jeremy Lauzon finding his game and really like finding his confidence and playing his game. And so now that he has that, I don't think that's going to change no matter who his defensive partner is. We saw Alex Carrier missed some games this year with injuries and whatnot. And so we've seen, Lauzon can play effectively with other defensive partners. And I'm not worried. If he gets the time to, starting in training camp and, can develop and really work on his chemistry with whoever his new defensive partner will be, I'm really not concerned.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Again, he's one of those big physical guys that you feel like you may be able to partner with one of the younger guys who maybe doesn't have as physical a game. It's going to be really interesting to see going forward. How does Andrew Brunette use Jeremy Lauzon and his style of play? So I think that's something we're going to keep an eye on as we get closer to training camp and the start of the season as well. It is Friday, though, Emma. That means we get to talk about our big Friday feelings. And I just wondered if I could just share a big Friday feeling that I have that I've kept inside for a couple of weeks now. And I just feel like maybe it's time to just put it out there.
And the floor is yours. Please tell us your big Friday feelings.
So I mentioned I am up in Milwaukee. I am here. We're recording this Thursday afternoon. I'm here to cover Game 4 for the Milwaukee Admirals against the Coachella Valley Firebirds. It's the Western Conference Final in the AHL. And I just have to say, Emma, that I think it is very important. I feel that it is very important for Nashville Predators fans and people who cover the Nashville Predators to pay attention to the Milwaukee Admirals. And I think most people would go along with that. But there are some people in the sports sphere who feel like this is not maybe worth their time. And there's a lot to do. And there's a lot to do when you cover an NHL team like the Predators. So I understand that. But I just want to come on here and say, if you are going to talk with authority about the Nashville Predators and where they're at right now, they're in this, starting this reset. It makes no sense to me to disregard the pipeline that is the Milwaukee Admirals and the players gaining experience in the AHL and saying, I don't need to know about them or care about them until they come up to Nashville and do something for me. Because if you don't know what you have in the pipeline, you don't know if you need to go to free agency. You don't know if you need to draft differently, 3 years from now. And so I just want to say, I feel like people who say that might not know as much about the Nashville Predators this season as maybe they could. I also think it's interesting, got to talk today to Fedor Svechkov, who is delightful. had a great conversation with him, but he kept pointing out, this is his first year down here with the Admirals. And he's like, this is very different. This is the second best league in the world. And I'm learning so much. And I love the process. I love following these players through this process, seeing them develop, seeing their willingness to gain wisdom, to build habits. And so I just want to say, I feel like if you were going to speak with authority about the Nashville Predators, pay a little bit of attention to the Milwaukee Admirals, or don't mock the people who do.
Plus, even take all of that aside, y'all, it's hockey. And we
It's hockey.
And we have had for a week now, I have been like twitching, like with no hockey to watch this week while we wait for the Stanley Cup final to start on Saturday.
Yes.
I'm like, and thank God for the Calder Cup playoffs. It's hockey. It's hockey.
It's hockey. So those are our big Friday feelings. We feel like y'all should be watching the Milwaukee Admirals. And again, like, I get time constraints, but then follow someone who does. Ask questions, learn some more, because there's a lot of great hockey going on in Milwaukee and a lot of interesting players that Nashville fans will want to know more about. So just throwing that out there. That is all we have for today's Friday feelings that we're willing to share today. I'm sure we have plenty more, but we'll just keep those to ourselves for another week. And that's going to do it for today's episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back Monday with an all-new episode. We'll see you then.